Good day, everybody, welcome to today's video. Today's video, we've got a little bit of sadness. As you can tell by the title, something is obviously wrong. A little while ago, I installed an aftermarket oil pan to get rid of the remote oil filter, mainly because two reasons. The remote oil filter was a pain in the ass, and the gasket was starting to leak. Not good. So I went and purchased an aftermarket oil pan. It's a 302-2, not the Holly version. It was a clone version, so that could have been the big problem right here. We need to investigate why the oil pressure in my LS Vortec engine dropped from around 50 to 25, and to at idle, it dropped down to about 10 psi. And at one time, from sitting idling at the car wash, it actually dropped down to almost zero. So we need to do some investigation. So I got the old tube right here because I got good oil pressure in this tube. I can't use this tube for obvious reasons. But we need to take a measurement of here because the one that I put in didn't have a black O-ring. And the size of the O-ring is determined by how big diameter your inlet tube is. So what I got right here on the bench is I got a brand name oil inlet tube gasket or O-ring. It is a Felpro and a Melee oil pan gasket, because I can tell you right now this one here is 100 times better, and you can also lose oil pressure in these galleries right here. This is kind of an inconvenience, but it's not the end of the world. I came outside tonight to drain the oil, drop the skid pan, so that can all drain tomorrow before I tackle this job to figure out what exactly is going on. Because long term, if I don't fix this solution, I could damage or destroy this motor. You see, when I first did this task and I noticed the lower oil pressure right off the bat, I didn't really think too much of it because you have to understand what is pressure. Pressure is the result of resistance to flow. Now, I had a remote oil filter on there before. I probably had like 18-inch oil lines. So at first I chalked it up to the resistance going through the oil lines would probably boost the pressure up a little bit. But obviously, you know, that's not in a good way. But then, like I said before, what really concerned me was when I was at the car wash and I was sitting there for a prolonged period of time, and all of a sudden the light flashed up on my dash and said check gauges, and I looked, the oil pressure was at pretty much at zero. But the weird thing is, once I tapped the gas, the oil pressure went up. And before, with the remote oil filter, the oil pressure did not fluctuate much at all, maybe 5 psi. I just got my cat litter box there, our container, to get the oil. I'm going to get this rechargeable light that I got from Princess Auto. These were really cheap a little while ago. I don't know if they still carry them. It's the Volt King. And like I said before, they only got like a couple hours of battery life, but when you're working on something, they definitely do come in handy. You don't have to worry about extension cords and this and that. Like any task, once you do it a couple times, you find out ways. Like the first time I did the oil pan, I actually dropped the drive shaft to get the exhaust out. But now I know I can get the exhaust out without doing it. And I can drop the exhaust a lot quicker now because I know little tips and tricks. They're going to make it work. And as you can see, I'm just letting the oil drip out, be less of a mess when I go to pull it out. There are still a couple issues I need to adjust when I got this apart. One of them could be... Ooh, shut her down, almost knocked it over. So I could actually have a rear main oil seal leak. So I am leaking here. It could be the gasket. The problem was there before. It actually could be leaking from up top before. But I do like this setup better with the oil filter right there. And also having the bolts go into there. Added strength for the transmission case. Anyways, we need to drop this oil pan tomorrow. We're going to get all the parts out. We're going to measure the oil suction tube diameter, talk about the O-ring. We need to go over all these things. This is one of these things where I should have done some research and investigation before I decided to assemble all this together. I just assumed, which you should never assume just because it comes together as a kit. Doesn't mean that everything's good. As I said before, this is an aftermarket oil pan setup. So we don't have a brand name gasket. We probably don't have a good O-ring that went with it. We're going to get everything out, and then we're going to start talking about it and work our way through the situation. Hopefully, once I take it apart and do some changing, we can resolve the issue. Well, there's one bolt left. There we go. Oh, shit, fucking leaking oil all over me. Oil filter housing is what was leaking. That pissed all the oil down on me. Okay, the oil pan's out. Look at the suction tube. I'm gonna pull the suction tube out, see if that O-ring's pinched, and do our investigation on why the oil pressure dropped down. So I got them both on the bench, and what I have identified is a couple problems. One for sure, and one we are going to debate. The first one, as you can see, the O-ring is pinched. And for some reason, I thought the O-ring was brown when I first installed it. I guess it's green. But anyways, green is typically used if the tube is tapered, and which basically means it has like a notch or whatever. One style has a notch that the O-ring will sit in and taper it out. And then this is the one that came out, had the black. And what is the difference? What is the difference? I'm going to show you guys so that you know. So I did some chicken man drawings there. So the one on the left is the one that came out with the black O-ring and has 0.87 as a measurement all the way through. The other one I said was tapered. So near the O-ring base, it's supposed to be 0.84 and then taper out to 0.87. So I just have my caliper set up for 0.845 just to show. So we're going to take this green O-ring off, and you are going to see that nowhere on there can this go over. So the green O-ring, I believe, that came with the kit is wrong. So now we have it set up at 0.87, and you can clearly see we can go on. If we remove the O-ring off this one here, it's the same thing. Actually, this one here is probably just a tad bit bigger. This is where we go down the rabbit hole because everything is aftermarket. So this aftermarket oil suction tube is like 0.880. And you can tell the O-ring is thinner. This is what the factory's supposed to have, this black one, and that's the green one. This one is 0.87. I measured it, so that O-ring should work. It does look a little thicker than the green one, so we're going to have to be careful. However, if things don't work out, I do have an O-ring right in there that looks like could possibly work. Or we may be going down the rabbit hole. We're going to find out. But we'll see if we can make one of them work. This is where the sadness comes into play. That's where I come to my first failure. I come to the conclusion that this is definitely not going to go in. Well, that didn't work. You can tell definitely thicker than the green one, but that black one from the O-ring kit seems like it could be the one. So we're gonna go for round 2 and maybe open up a can of worms. Nothing is never easy. Round 2 with the other O-ring. Let's see if we can make this one work. Well, let's try again. See what's gonna happen. All right. Round 2. More sadness. Got it in. It's nice and flat. I can move this around and it doesn't seem like the O-ring is going to get pinched anywhere. Bolted down, torqued. We won't know if it's going to work or not until after we fire it up, unfortunately. Everything's cleaned up, got a new gasket, brand name gasket, way better quality. Something about these gaskets now, so I actually got it for $35 less on Amazon than I could from the local parts store. That's how crazy the price markup is. Got the oil pan bolted back up and torqued down. I know some people like to see some B-roll, but we've already been through this. I just want to get it done. I want to see if the oil pressure is going to make a difference. We're doing good. Exhaust is bolted back up. All the way back. Those batteries and those lights are almost dead. Been out here for probably 3-4 hours. So just got to pour some oil in. It's a moment of truth. I hope this is going to work, because otherwise, whoops, I am going to be very sad. All right. Seconds away from happiness or sadness. I'm gonna be able to tell right away if we're gonna see a difference. Well, what do you think it's gonna be? Is it gonna be a success? Is it gonna be screwed up again? Is by chance the O-ring the wrong size? Is it gonna be a failure? Because wouldn't that be something if I had 2 pinched O-rings in a row? I sure the heck hope not. I sure hope not. So we're going to be hit up with a few seconds of no oil pressure, followed by oil pressure. Oh yeah, there we go. Back to 50 PSI. Like where it's supposed to be. First off, I want to say I'm glad we have a success story, and I'm not afraid to admit that I screwed up. Somehow, I rolled that O-ring when it was installed, even though I tried to be cautious, do it, even did it a few times to practice with the old one just to see how it was going to go in. Anyways, I still ended up screwing it up. So it had nothing to do with having the wrong O-ring. Because as we found out, if we aren't dealing with OEM parts, we can't go off of OEM numbers. Since both of those suction tubes are aftermarket, they are different sizes and they use different O-rings. Because as you remember, the factory O-ring that I had purchased was way too big. I couldn't get it in. And I had to resort to an O-ring from an O-ring kit that was pretty much dead on for the size, and I was gonna hope that it worked, and it did. We have a success story. I am gonna take it out for a spin tonight just to make sure, but that goes to show you that a pinched O-ring dropped my oil pressure by half. On a cold engine, I was 50 psi, and then with a pinched O-ring, I was 25. That goes to show you how critical this is to get it fixed. What are you doing? What are you doing, you little fluff ball? Hey, what are you doing? Hey, is that the murder button? Is touching your belly the murder button? Is it? You want some belly rubs? Do you want to murder me? Is that what you want? Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Look how fluffy you are. Look how fluffy you are, Miss Carmen's. Look at you. Look at you, hey? Look at you. No, I know. You want to play. You want to play. You want to attack me. Got the Princess Auto, one of my favorite stores to be. Finally got a folding step platform to use in the garage instead of standing on blocks of wood, especially when I'm working on my Jeeps. Make things a little easier. Got some gloves as well, landfill biodegradable disposable gloves. Try these out, see how well they are. Let's have a look at this bad boy picked up. Good old power fist. That's quite a bit taller than I thought it would be. I'm standing on it. That being said, it's time to end the video, and now it's motherfucking beer time. This is a beer that Fedora got for me from, I believe, California. A little something ale. Away smooth silky IPA. Is there an alcohol rating on here somewhere? Am I blind? What's going on with this? It doesn't have a percentage reading. I found it. It's hidden. 7.5%. Holy Jesus. That's gonna mess you up. Alright, shut her down. Motherfucking beer time. 7.5% IPA. Man, this is gonna be some strong. Little something ale. It's not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. So everything that I thought could have been the issue obviously turned out to be wrong. But everything I thought that could be the issue can be an issue in someone else's situation. Like I said before and explained it earlier, when you're using aftermarket parts on an OEM engine, you can't rely on OEM specs because they are no longer valid. They're null and void as what you've seen. The first oil pan suction tube I took off had a black O-ring, but that black O-ring obviously was not the same size because the diameter of that tube was thicker than what the OEM one was. And then I thought the other tube matched the thickness of the OEM, but the O-ring was quite a bit thicker, so we lucked out there as well. Got shot down, couldn't get it in. Replaced it with an O-ring that was the same size as the one that was on it. There was no issues with getting it pinched this time around. I'm very happy to have back 50 psi while driving, when before it was 25 psi. Hot idle, I was at 10 psi. If it sat long enough, it dropped down to like 0. And my check gauges light will show up on the dash. At that point, I just have to give the throttle a blip and it'd go back up. But I knew something was wrong. Something was wrong. And I had to dig into it to tear it down, because last thing you want to do is starve the engine of oil and blow it. Your whole investment would be completely gone, and that wouldn't be good. I am safe now. Everything is looking good. All my theories right down to the pressure could have been from the extended oil lines and remote filter was complete bullshit. It is solved. The problem was me, and I messed up the installation. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. It's motherfucking beer time, and it is what it is. Shut her down. Got another big project. The next video coming up. Or it could be another video after that. I'm not sure how the videos are playing out. Anyways, see you guys.